In this week's Parashah, Parshat Behar, the Torah commands us to count 7 years 7 times, and after 49 years, then there's the 50th year, the Jubilee year. This is a continuation of what was already discussed in the previous Parashah, that we have a mitzvah to count 7 weeks. Each week is 7 days, and then you count 7 weeks. That's Sfirat Omer, the counting of the Omer. Then the 50th day is the Chag Shavuot, the giving of the Torah. There are other counts in the Torah, like in order to become pure from spiritual impurity, that a person has to count 7 days, or a woman has to count 7 clean days, and then go to the mikveh. So we see that the Torah, in reference to time, operates and commands us to think in terms of sevens, like a cycle of 7. It's either 7 days of the week. That's actually the way the world was created. That Hashem created the world in 6 days of actual physical creation, and then on the 7th day, which is the consummation, the completion, he rested. So the first cycle of time that we see explicitly in the Torah at the very beginning of creation is 7 days. And then the 7 days appears in many, many laws of the Torah. As we said, that a person has to count 7 days. And then we have this mitzvah every year of counting 7 days 7 times, 7 weeks. Every 7 days is a week. Even the word week itself, Shavua in Hebrew, is from the word 7, Sheva. So we count in sevens, in cycle of sevens, and that's this Sfirat Omer. And then in this week's parashah, we come to the climax, the epitome, that one counts 7 years. Every 7th year is a Shemitah year, it's a sabbatical year. It's called the Shabbat of the earth. And we count, just like in Sfirat Omer, 7 years, 7 times, and then after the 49 years, there's a 50th year, which is the Jubilee year. That everyone goes free, all the slaves are free, all the land returns to its initial original owners. So the meditation of this week is to meditate on cycles of 7. The time in the Torah operates, functions in cycles of 7. In Sefer Yetzirah, we find that there are 3 dimensions to reality, the way Hashem created the world. He created it in Olam, Shana, Nefesh, which means worlds, year, and soul, or space, time, and soul. 3 different dimensions of creation. That Hashem creates space, the spatial dimensions. It's all considered to be one general dimension of reality. And then he creates time, and he creates soul, and they all actually parallel one another. Everything that exists in the world exists in the year, in the time. Everything that exists in time and in world exists in the soul. There's always parallel. That's actually the basis of Kabbalah. The word Kabbalah means Hakbalah. Hakbalah is parallel. Everything parallels. The difference is that each one is a different state of consciousness. The state of consciousness of worlds is a consciousness of actually of 4, just like we have 4 worlds or 4 lateral directions of the physical, spatial world. So one thinks in terms of worlds, one actually is thinking in terms of 4s, of 4 and another 4, another 4. One thinks one's consciousness in relation to time is a much more expanded consciousness. Whereas world is a much more condensed state of consciousness, world of space. Time expands one's consciousness. So instead of thinking in 4s, one actually adds another 3, and one thinks in 7s. That's the teaching of this week's parashah, to think time-wise in 7s. But when one comes to the epitome of consciousness, complete consciousness, that's called consciousness of soul, then actually one thinks in 10s, because the soul has 10 different levels to it, 10 different powers to it, attributes and faculties to it. So once more, from 7 to 10, one has to add another 3. These 3 states of consciousness in Kabbalah are called pregnancy, nursing, and maturity. Ibur, Yenika, Mochin. to think one's consciousness in terms just of space, the space around me, like the four directions around me, which actually in a certain way reflect all of the four worlds, that's a consciousness of being pregnant, not yet even being born into full awareness of reality. To be born into reality means to become conscious of the passing of time. And then one adds another 3 levels to his state of consciousness, and it becomes 7, cycles of 7, just like we're now learning from this week's parasha. And then the maturity, which is actually above physical reality. Because as we said at the very beginning, the physical world was created in 6 days and then a 7th day of Shabbat. So to reach a level of 10, which is called Ha'asiri Kodesh Hashem, the 10 is sacred and holy to Hashem, that's superseding and rising above physicality altogether. That's the essence of maturity, which is the essence of mind power, which is above the 7 attributes of the heart. The consciousness of 4 correspond in Kabbalah to the 4 lower sfirot, which is called the mutba, the innate or instinctive levels of the soul. The names of the sfirot are Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut, the last 4 sfirot. That's a whole category and a state by itself. And it has a consciousness, it has a personality of its own, a consciousness of its own. That's called the consciousness of worlds, of Olam. But then, to reach a consciousness of time, the complete cycle of time, which time is more mature, time is actually being born and beginning to nurse, not just being in the womb. And that consciousness adds the essential emotive attributes to one's state of awareness, which are Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, another 3 sfirot, which is loving kindness and might or awe in the presence of Hashem and compassion, mercy. But then reaching up to the soul takes us to a level of 10, and 10 is adding the essentially mental powers, which are above the creation of physical reality. And they are Chokhmah, Bina, and Dat, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, the inner experience of which is bitul, selflessness, and joy in comprehending godliness, and connection and yichud, unification with godliness. Those are the 3. That's what brings us to 10. So actually 4 is a very special number. The Rambam, Maimonides, in his Guide to the Perplexed, says that 4 is the most important number, the most all-inclusive number. Everything divides into quarters, just like you have a cake. So you cut it into quarters. So all of reality divides into 4s. That's what the Rambam explains. So that's actually the basic, the fundamental state of consciousness, but it's the lowest state of consciousness. The consciousness of world in itself, even though it reflects all 4 worlds. But Chazal say, the sages tell us that all 7s are dear. The dearness of 7 is that one is able to live in, we'll call it Jewish time cycle, and complete one's Jewish time cycle. But then, as we said before, there's another verse that says, Ha'asiri Kodesh Hashem, the 10 is the holy number. Because 10 is adding another 3 sfirot, another level, another floor to your consciousness, and it brings you to the epitome of consciousness, which is the recognition of godliness.